Snatcher is a handy tool that you can use for all sorts of downloading jobs. You just begin at the top in the URL bar. Here, type in a URL that you're interested in. Then you either press Enter or the Go Refresh button. Snatcher will download the file and parse it out into a tree view. Here, you can see all the dependencies on this main page. And looking down further, you can see that there are subfolders that we can subsequently click on and open. We can continue opening subfolders as far as we want. The power of Snatcher is within this tree view, which functions very similarly to the way the tree view does in Windows Explorer. In conjunction with the tree view, the right-click menu provides the rest of the power. For example, I can click on an image file, in this case a GIF, and choose Select All GIF Files, and the checkboxes next to each file becomes checked. At this point, I can click on Download, and every single file that is checked will be downloaded. If I want to select even more files, for example, these here which are not selected, I need to go up a little higher. I can right-click here and select All Image Files, which will select every file that I've defined as an image file. We'll show you a little more about that in a minute. At this point, I can download every single file that I've opened up and that I've checked. The real power of Web Snatcher comes from the Download menu. In this case, we've clicked on the root element and chosen Download. Here we're presented with a dialog box that lets us download every single file if we want to. This is effectively archiving the website. We can tell Snatcher to generate subfolders so that it mimics the structure of the site we're downloading. If you're only interested in downloading files of certain types, you can still use the same menu. You can download the root element. In this case, let's not generate subfolders, but let's use a download filter. We can define our filter options here. We can turn off everything except images. When we start, Snatcher will begin to download every single image that's on the site. Let's back up and look at some of the options that Snatcher offers us. Click here on the Options button to reveal a dialog with numerous tabs in it. The first one is called Folders. Here you can tell Snatcher where to download your files to. These two radio buttons determine exactly where within that folder the files go. If you're just downloading images or movies from a site, it's best to dump all the files into a single folder. However, if you're archiving a website, click Generate Subfolders so that Snatcher will mimic the same structure that's on the website. Use the Update Links button to match the local download folder. In the File Types and Filters tab, the default option is to show all file types. However, you can tell Snatcher to hide certain types of files. For example, if you're only interested in images, you might consider turning off video, audio, text documents, archived, and applications. To go into a little more detail and show you how to add different extensions, you can click on the Customize button for each type. Here you can define new file extensions that can be interpreted as images. For example, let's say we know that there's a file type called HGS. That's a special new type of image file. We can add that as an extension and it'll automatically be added here. If we know that we don't want a certain file type to appear, or we want to ignore certain file types, we can just unselect them here. This way you have even finer control over the types of files that you download in Snatcher. The Files tab is fairly simple. It simply allows you to skip files of certain sizes. You can skip files that are smaller than a certain file size or larger. This is useful, for example, if you're downloading images and you want to skip thumbnails. The FTP option isn't used very frequently. But if the site uses FTP and you have a username and password, enter it here. And then the Other tab has various options that don't really belong anywhere else. You can set the agent name to something other than Snatcher if for some reason you want to disguise what application you're using to archive a website. If you want to generate a log file, you can do it here. You can also view your error log by clicking on this button. Clicking Show Errors in Message Boxes is useful if you want to figure out what's going on. However, if you have it on, it will interrupt your download progress. Every time an error pops up, you have to press OK on the error in order to continue. So generally, keep this off. For links, the default is to only show new files that appear on documents. However, if you have very complex web pages, the parsing can sometimes be slow. If you find you have a site like that, check this button and the parsing will be very fast, although you will see duplicates of many items. Many sites have menus that appear on every single page, and if they're full of links, when you click this option, you'll see those links every single time. And then finally, this last proxy server support brings you to the familiar Internet Explorer options that you can set. Just for fun, I want to download some files. I'm going to click on the Clips subfolder and choose Download Clips. I'm not going to generate subfolders, I'm just going to download to my download folder. I will use a filter because I only want to download video files. Let's go. Snatcher goes to work. For quick access to the folder, I can click right here and see that the files are downloading. I think now it's time to go get something to eat so that when I come back, Snatcher will be all done and I'll have a bunch of movie clips I can watch.